So we're on the cusp of summer. I mean, officially, we say summer starts in sometime, what, June 21st or so? But somebody will call up, I'm sure, and say, no, it's June 20th. Get your facts straight, Bill. But we know it's in late June. I'll put it that way, later June. But unofficially, of course, it kicked off with a Memorial Day weekend for a lot of people. And summer means, of course, people are going to be doing a lot more outdoor activities. And they should probably take some precautions that they wouldn't necessarily take if they were housebound and had cabin fever. Joining us this morning, it's 8:34, 58 right now, Dr. Jonathan Tripp from Tripp Family Medicine. Call it Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine.
Good
Didn't
morning.
expect to see you today. I know the rotation. You've been one of the regulars lately.
That's right. Somehow, I started the show and they want me to continue it. I
What
don't
do you
know.
think? You think your name's on the business or something?
Exactly, exactly. Actually, the show's a lot of fun, so I do tend to steal when I can a show here and there. But we have our two physician assistants, Russell Singleton and Jeremy Daly, who are both excellent, and they're really smart guys. In fact, they're probably smarter than I am, but I don't admit that to them. So, but they always have excellent topics. But today we're going to talk about staying healthy during summertime, and I'd like to encourage callers to give us what you like to do in summertime. What are things that are unique about what you do during that time that bring some joy to you, have some fun, give you a little relaxation. So we're going to talk about that, and I have some suggestions and some tips on how to stay healthy and to have a little fun.
I know that you were telling me a story. I think it was last summer about when you were a teenager, and you were working on a farm back in Pennsylvania, and it was a really hot, sticky day. And when you're putting in bales of hay and doing all of those things, you sometimes, even if you're young,
Right?
you think you're impervious to anything that's around you. But on a hot day, if you're not drinking a lot of water, you're going to be in some serious trouble.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I was 16, so I was not, decrepit old man. But we went and we were throwing bales of hay that are the old, 100-pound or 60-pound bales. I don't remember which. But this is something I didn't do often, and we just were going at it and working hard, and got about 2 or 3 hours into it, and I don't remember, but I was about to pass out, I guess. And I usually don't drink tea, but I'll tell you what, iced tea was the best drink I'd ever had in my life that day. So,
We see a lot of these people who are runners, and if you're doing it in March, it's probably not. If you're a proficient runner, you're probably not under too much stress. But I will see people out running here. We don't have the dew points that perhaps they have in some parts of the country, but still, if you're running and it's 100 degrees out,
you're
there's still some concerns.
yeah, in fact, having lived in the Southwest a lot, Texas and Arizona, you don't even detect that you're sweating because there's so little humidity, and that's kind of where we are, the high desert, that you're evaporating water through your skin, through your breath, and you don't even know it's going away. And you think, well, I've already had a couple glasses of water today, I should be fine. But you lose so much, especially if you're direct sunlight or if there's any wind, that it's really important to go more than you think you need to. In fact, one suggestion is a gallon a day if you're going to be working outside. But I've found people that, if they're working construction or they're doing, major lawn work and they're out for more than a couple hours at a time, you can go through a couple of gallons and still find out, not even urinating that much. And that's a big signal. If you're not, peeing a whole lot, and I'll talk specifically about pee, that is, if you're not urinating a lot, you're still not getting enough. Even though you say, "Well, I've drank a gallon of water today." Well, how many times you gone to the bathroom? Once. That's not a good sign. You're behind.
The other thing that strikes me too is one of my coworkers showed up yesterday after having been away for a 3-day weekend, and his face was as red as a lobster. We've got to be concerned about sun exposure.
Yeah, if you're like me and you spend most of your week, even in the summertime, indoors, and then go out on a weekend, you have to be especially careful because it's almost like your first exposure to the sun every week. Some people tan very well. I'm not one of those, but you with a tan, you tend to be a little more resilient to sunburn. It doesn't mean you can't get sun damage and later skin cancers and whatnot. But if you're fair skinned, especially, you need to be very careful and get a little bit of sun exposure at a time, or be very vigilant about heavier sunblocks like 40 or 50 SPF. and allow your skin to get a little bit at a time rather than burn, peel, burn, peel. That's terrible for skin cancers, but it'll help keep me in business. So I'm telling you how to not end up in my office.
We want to point out, I've got about 30 seconds before the first break, but for people who'd like to reach your office, how do they go about doing that?
Our telephone number is 208 490 66. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm giving you my cell number. That was pretty quick. 208 933 4400. And maybe I should give out my cell now.
Well, and we
So,
need to
not,
point out if people are looking for someone to do some lawn work or clean a pool, you got a
yeah,
couple of boys who are willing to do that.
I do. We got some young men that are willing to do odd jobs on lawns, and they are doing that. They've been working harder than they remember.
They can reach you at the office. You can line that up.
933 4400. We'll take your order.
We've got more with Dr. Jonathan Tripp coming up on Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 58. We're 20 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Dr. Jonathan Tripp is joining us in studio this morning. He's here until 9 o'clock. And you're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX, newsradio1310.com. But we're talking about some summer health issues, summer safety issues. And if you have a question or comment as well, 736-0300. We were talking in the break about people who they'll want a cold drink in the summer on a hot day, and they'll turn to a cold beer, and soda's not probably anywhere near as bad, but they'll turn that direction too. But these are things that they've got to be careful because it doesn't take a lot on a really hot summer day to give you some pretty bad symptoms.
Yeah, the downside of alcohol is that it dilates your blood vessels. So if you're in the heat, you have greater exposure to that heat. It's almost like somebody turned up the heat when you add alcohol to it. It may be cold going down, but the effect on your vessels is you're more subject to heat stroke. So, I have my wife's uncle says that, water's for fish and beer is to drink. So he's a guy that has suffered through a lot of summertime, alcohol. But the truth is, you can have one or two, but summertime isn't the time to go crazy on alcohol because you'll have, other than just the natural effects, you'll have more heat stroke liability.
The sugary drinks also, because I think you just get dehydrated because you're going to the bathroom so much, will do the same thing
Uh,
to a
uh,
lesser extent,
yeah,
though.
actually, not the sugar drinks that cause you to go to the bathroom are the caffeinated ones, and in our society, that's most commonly what we use. But it's actually the dehydration through the skin, through your breathing, that concentrates what's in your bloodstream. And then if you add a bunch of sugar to that too, your body is struggling to maintain its diluted state. So you really got to go after water in most cases.
20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, I was covering a court case for a radio station. It was a really hot summer day, and we ended up spending a lot of the day outside simply because there were a lot of recesses, and it was probably in the mid 90s. And then a friend of mine who worked for a competitor, we were driving home and we agreed to meet for dinner. We ran into Golden Corral, which was well air conditioned, ate our dinner for about an hour, came outside, and as soon as we walked into that heat from that cool period, and I'd been in the heat all day, but as soon as I walked back into the heat, my knees sort of got wobbly. That's probably also a sign that you've got a little trouble.
You were short on the fluid. Yeah, that's almost guaranteed. It's almost always fluid related and temperature related. So that's our biggest cautions. But I want to focus a little bit on things to do in the summer for moms with kids. And although we've talked about sunscreening, sunblock, in fact, we forgot to mention protecting your eyes.
Mm.
Having a truly decent pair of sunglasses goes a long way to avoiding cataracts later in life and having better vision all the way along.
I see these people who actually have the wraparound shades too, and that's probably even a better idea, isn't it?
It does give you a greater degree of protection, but the truth is, if most of your vision is covered with typical sunglasses, that's a good idea. Also, I want to bring up something I learned from a study from University of Illinois at Champlain, I think is where it was. But 2014, the end of that year, they did the largest study on kids with exercise. And what they did is they took a contingent of kids that they put into a exercise program, basically playing, and they had some organized games all summer long, and then a contingent that was, quote, on the waiting list. In other words, they didn't do it. And what they found is the kids that attended and the ones that attended the most had the best intellect after that summer. They scored higher on what they call executive function tests, or how you organize your life or organize thoughts. They were less distracted. In fact, they even hinted that it's maybe a great treatment for attention deficit is to get your kids out, let them play, because it changes their ability to put aside things that otherwise are distracting when they need to focus. And that I thought that was a very important piece. That it's not just for the physical health, but they found that the kids were a little smarter after a summer of exercise. So this would be a great time. Get your kids out, take them to the park, take them, anywhere, have some fun. We have some beautiful parks in this area down in the canyon or even Center City. We have access to mountains and lakes not too far away. So those are all great outdoor activities. But we also have lots of organized sports through the city, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA. All of those offer some real good resources to get your kids out, get yourself out. And if you haven't been exercising, start, slowly, start mildly. Don't take 8 hours of exercise in a day. But if you kind of go slowly, you'll progressively get quicker and better and faster, and you'll enjoy the summer a lot more. I think if you're feeling better because physically you're moving more.
If I go out and I'm hiking in the canyon, though, there's probably some things I should be aware of, ticks and things like that, and various, the idea is you're not supposed to.
Rattlesnakes.
That would be another one I'd be concerned about too.
The rattlesnakes, I bring that up kind of teasing because they are present, but they are not a dominant presence here. Where we lived in Arizona, it was a much more threat type of situation. We do have ticks. It would The main thing with ticks is mostly to check yourself out when you're done with your hike or whatever you're doing. Check your hair, do a full body check because you don't feel the tick. And most of the time, they haven't done much to really bite you, get into your skin in a very quick period of time. They're kind of slow on their attack. And so if you're out for an hour or two, usually you can find them. And even if they're on you, you can pick them off. And they're tough to kill, I'll tell you that.
Showering will not necessarily do it, right?
No, because they can hang on, if you don't look. But showering's a pretty good way to check yourself all over. So
Yeah.
that would be a good idea. Um, I want to tell you one of the things we're doing differently. I brought this up a couple weeks ago, and that is this summer we're taking our whole family down on a humanitarian trip where they really will work building houses, volunteering in an orphanage, um, feeding people. So it's a very poor area. It's not exactly where you'd go for vacation typically. And so it's a totally different point of view, but it is, one thing. I'm not saying everybody should go do a humanitarian trip, but it's a suggestion to do something different in your summertime. Take a day, take a week, whatever you can. It will help your heart. It will help your heart, your brain de-stress, and your heart do better. And it's funny to talk about heart health, but most heart attacks happen exactly when somebody's under a heavy amount of stress, or first thing before they wake up when their body is pumping them full of cortisol and getting them ready to start the day. That's a physical stress time. So, protect your heart, take a little time, breathe a little, relax a little. That's what summertime's supposed to be about. So, in regards to that humanitarian trip, we are taking donations at our office for things like toothbrushes and toothpaste and soap and deodorant and even feminine napkins, things like that, we're going to produce what's called a hygiene kit and take those with us. And so if anybody has leftover stuff under their sink that you've had, and they're still in the package, we're not asking you to go out and spend $50, but if you got something under your sink, bring it to our office. We're on Fillmore Street across from the post office, 1411 Fillmore, and you can reach us at 933-4400. That's our phone number. And on the web, they have our website. It's trippfamilymedicine.com, or on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine.
The one thing you pointed out about how this it takes you away from some of the stresses of life here. When you see what other people live like, though, and you've done these trips in the past, it gives you an appreciation for what we have here. And I would think that when you come back here following that, life is less stressful because you're much more appreciative of how it is here in comparison to what you've just seen.
It is a perspective giving experience. And my hope is for my own children that they'll gain that and find out, a lot of the things they thought they needed, they really don't need, and that they figure out that, one person can make a difference. So that's our hope is that on this trip that they'll not only serve, but they'll see that they can make a difference. And when they come home, they'll see what's really important rather than feel like I have to work or do this or do that to obtain the new thing.
Now, a lot of people are doing these summer trips, whether they be a mission trip or whether they just go to summer camp. And, we've been talking about health issues in summer, but if you're traveling out of the country, there's probably a list of things a checklist you should have before you go.
Yeah, in fact, if you're going out of the country, the State Department and the Centers for Disease Control have websites that will tell you what they recommend that you either do in the way of immunizations or medication you carry with you, if there's worries of malaria, things like that. So it's worth taking a look, and they've done a pretty nice job of specifying what to do in each area. So I would look at the State Department's website as well as CDC.
There's the old joke, don't drink the water.
Yeah,
That
that's a truism. Yeah.
there are ways that if you know, though, if you plan ahead, you can get around all of these concerns.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a lot of it is just planning instead of haphazard. Now you find yourself somewhere you didn't expect to be, and you're not sure on water supply. That's probably the biggest threat is the good old diarrhea that comes from getting infected or contaminated with food that wasn't washed or straight from the water.
Do you find in a family practice that do you see more people in summer than in winter because they're outdoors more often?
Wow, there I would tell you yes when it comes to injuries. People are getting out and doing house, repair projects or they're cutting trees and grass and things like that, or they're participating in athletics that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So, from a sports injury or just working on your own, and I don't want to say fall off a ladder, but you cut yourself or whatnot. Those are things we see more of. And by the way, if you do cut yourself, come to see our office. A little cosmetic background. We'll try to make your scar look better. But as far as generally like colds and what we think of as getting sick, that's less because we spread out more. We're not in school. We're not as confined. We don't share things as quickly. So it does shift during the summer as to what we see.
I would think though you referenced snakes and other things pests you have to deal with, but the other part of this is if you're traveling and you headed out towards Yellowstone or the Tetons or into northern Idaho, there are a lot of critters you've got to be aware of too because your safety is paramount if you're walking on a trail and you come across a 500-pound bear.
Yeah, I hope you got your running shoes.
Yeah,
And remember, they don't run as fast downhill, and the speed that you need to run to get away from a bear is just a little faster than the guy behind you.
yeah,
So,
yes, that's true. We wanted to point out this trip that you're going on is just a few weeks away,
yeah,
right?
it's actually mid-July, but we're trying to collect the supplies for the hygiene kits in the next 2 weeks. So we'll have a box in our office. I have my 14-year-old son creating that box as we speak, and so happy to take that even if the box isn't there.
Now, they're looking forward to it. I assume the whole family is looking forward to it at this point. And when you mentioned benefits that will come out of it, uh, when everyone comes back, and we mentioned the fact that you appreciate life here a bit more. Long term, are there any good health benefits for doing a trip like this? Where you go out and you do mission work.
I would say that the discussion about de-stressing and actually more truly protecting your heart would be the bigger benefit. I don't think there's any studies that I can quote that they've compared people that have done frequent medical missions or other humanitarian work and how their health is versus others. But my belief is that is a moment that their stress level drops, their appreciation for home goes way up, and so when things look a little more uptight back at home, they have that perspective that the adrenaline isn't so prevalent in their system.
You see, I've read that people who are more altruistic in life, and it could be they go to church more often, but they get involved with these types of things, generally are healthier in the long run.
I do think, and again, I can't quote studies, but if you have a little more optimistic perspective, and now a lot of that comes from serving others, you tend to not worry about things as much as someone who isn't hasn't done that because when you are truly looking outside yourself because you're helping somebody else, your stress, your perspective changes, and that does help you be more optimistic.
One more time for people who are looking to get in touch with you, and of course, you need those some of those supplies and toiletries for the trip. How do they get in touch with you at the office?
It is phone number is 208 933 4400. Our location is on Fillmore Street, across from the post office on the north side of town. You'll see it, our name in the window right across from the post office. Um, our website, trippvalleymedicine.com, and Facebook is Tripp Valley Medicine. We'd love to have you. We're making our kids work their way to pay for this trip. So we got boys for hire, and we got girls that are making pretzels, and I guess we better get that on our Facebook page because these pretzels are
Now,
internationally renowned.
with a family name like Tripp, of course they can make pretzels.
Yeah,
Yes, we'll talk to you again soon.
that'll be great.
News is coming up in just a few minutes. Of course, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. One more hour of top story left with Bill Colley. It's 59 at 8:59.